Oliver, Ethan, and Ryan all have the same problem. They each have $5,000 on a credit card, and all three decide they are finally going to pay it off. But they approach it completely differently. Oliver decides to pay whatever he can at the end of each month. Ethan decides to put a fixed amount toward the balance, but keeps using the card whenever he runs short. Ryan does something different. Before making a single extra payment, he figures out exactly how much the debt is costing him and exactly how much money he can put toward it every month. And that first step matters more than it sounds. Because if you don't know your numbers, you can make payments for months and still feel like you're getting nowhere. So let's start with the first thing all three of them should have done. They check the credit card statement, they find the current balance, APR, minimum payment, and due date. Then they look at their recent spending and work out why the balance reached $5,000 in the first place. Ryan discovers that he has been putting everyday purchases on the card because he keeps running short before payday. That's a problem. If he pays $500 toward the card, but then puts another $400 of new spending back onto it, he's barely making progress. So Ryan makes his first rule. No new spending on the card while he's paying the balance down. Oliver doesn't do this. He keeps using his card for groceries, takeout, and random purchases, then makes his payment at the end of the month. His balance goes down, then back up. Ethan stops using his card, but he makes another mistake. He simply pays whatever amount feels comfortable that month. Some months it's $300. Some months it's $150. Sometimes it's just the minimum because something else came up. There's no consistent plan. Ryan takes a different approach. He looks at his monthly income and necessary expenses and works out what he can realistically commit to the debt every single month. Then he makes that payment part of his budget instead of hoping there will be money left over. And this is the first major lesson. Paying off credit card debt isn't just about making bigger payments. You have to stop the balance from growing, understand the cost of the debt, and create a payment you can actually maintain. Because if three people start with the exact same $5,000 balance, the person with the best plan isn't necessarily the person who makes the biggest payment on day one. It's the person who can keep moving that balance in one direction, down. After the first month, all three realize something uncomfortable. Their $5,000 balances are not really $5,000 problems. The interest keeps adding to the balance, which means the longer they take to pay the debt off, the more expensive it can become. So they each decide to make a serious plan. Oliver chooses the easiest option. He pays the minimum payment every month and tells himself that at least he is making progress. Technically, he is. But the minimum payment is designed to keep the account current, not necessarily to get him out of debt quickly. If he only pays the minimum, a large amount of his payment can go toward interest and other charges rather than reducing the principal balance as quickly as he wants. Ethan realizes this and decides to double his minimum payment. That is better. But he still hasn't answered the most important question. How much can he actually afford to pay every month? Ryan sits down with his budget. He discovers that after his essential expenses, he can consistently put $600 a month toward the card. So he makes that his target. Now he has a number. And that changes everything. Instead of opening his banking app every month and wondering how much he should pay, he already knows the plan. But Ryan does something else that Oliver and Ethan haven't done. He makes his payment automatic. As soon as he gets paid, the money allocated to the credit card is already accounted for. He isn't waiting until the end of the month to see what happens to be left. Because I'll pay whatever's left usually means there is suddenly nothing left. Then Ryan looks for ways to create extra payments without destroying his entire life. Maybe he cancels a subscription he doesn't use. Maybe he cooks at home a few more times. Maybe he sells something he no longer needs. Maybe he puts an unexpected $100 gift or bonus toward the card instead of immediately spending it. These aren't magic tricks, they're simply ways of making the debt disappear faster. And there's another important rule. Don't stop making the required payment just because you made an extra payment. The payment schedule and requirements on your particular card still matter. Ryan checks his card terms and makes sure he understands the due date and minimum payment. Then he treats his $600 target as an additional repayment goal. Oliver, meanwhile, keeps thinking about the debt as a monthly bill. Ryan thinks about it as a balance he is actively destroying. That difference matters psychologically. Every month, Ryan watches the $5,000 become $4,400, then $3,800, then $3,200. The number is moving in the direction he wants, and that creates momentum, because paying off debt isn't just about knowing you should pay more. You need a system that makes the progress visible, automatic, and repeatable. After a few months, the three balances start moving in very different directions. Oliver is frustrated. He's been making payments, but the balance barely seems to change. Then he checks his spending. He realizes he's still using the card for groceries, takeout, and random purchases whenever his checking account gets low. So he is essentially trying to empty a bathtub while the faucet is still running. That is his biggest mistake. If you're serious about paying off a credit card, you need to stop adding new debt to the same balance whenever possible. If you need the card for essential expenses because you genuinely cannot cover them another way, that is a sign that you need to address the underlying budget problem rather than simply making larger payments. Ethan has a different problem. He stopped using the card, but he keeps his entire paycheck in one account and pays the credit card manually at the end of the month. Some months he spends more than expected, then an unexpected expense appears. By the time the payment is due, the money he planned to use has already disappeared. Ryan avoids both problems by separating the money mentally and practically. His debt payment is part of his budget from the beginning. He also creates a small amount of cash savings for unexpected expenses. That might seem strange when he still has credit card debt, but having some accessible cash for emergencies can help prevent every unexpected $300 expense from immediately going back onto the card. Then Ryan tackles another important question. What happens when you have more than one debt? If you have several credit cards or loans, don't randomly throw extra money at whichever balance happens to annoy you most. List every debt with its balance, interest rate, minimum payment, and due date. Then make the required minimum payments on all of them. After that, decide where your extra money should go. One common approach is the debt avalanche, where you direct extra money toward the debt with the highest interest rate first. Another is the debt snowball, where you focus on the smallest balance first to create quick psychological wins. Neither method magically changes the interest rate. The important thing is having a clear system and sticking with it. And there's one more mistake all three need to avoid. As soon as one card gets paid off, don't immediately treat that freed up payment as extra spending money. If Ryan was paying $600 a month toward his card, once the balance reaches zero, that $600 should get a new job. He could redirect it toward another debt, savings, or another financial goal. That is how you turn debt repayment into actual financial progress. Oliver's learning this the hard way. His goal was simply to make the monthly payment. Ryan's goal was different. He wanted to reach zero. And once you stop treating the credit card payment as another permanent bill and start treating it as a temporary problem with an endpoint, the whole strategy changes. And because the goal isn't to become really good at carrying credit card debt. The goal is to stop carrying it. Eventually, the three approaches produce three very different results. Oliver is still making payments, but because he keeps using the card, his balance keeps coming back. Ethan has made progress, but because his payments change from month to month, the payoff keeps getting pushed further into the future. Ryan has a different problem now. His balance is getting close to zero. And this is where he has to avoid one final mistake, thinking that paying off the card means the job is finished. The moment the balance reaches zero, Ryan checks that the account actually shows the correct balance and that there are no remaining charges or fees he needs to deal with. Then he changes what happens to the money he was using for debt repayment. Remember that $600 a month? It doesn't suddenly become spending money. Ryan redirects it. He might build his emergency savings. He might put it toward another high-interest debt. He might invest some of it for a long-term goal. The exact destination depends on his situation. But the important thing is that the money continues doing something useful. And he changes the habit that created the debt in the first place. If he originally used the card because he regularly ran out of money before payday, he needs a system that prevents that from happening again. Otherwise, 6 months from now, he could be looking at another $2,000 balance, wondering how it happened. That is why paying off a credit card is not just a debt problem. It is a cash flow problem and a behavior problem. You need to know what caused the balance. Stop adding new debt. Make a realistic repayment plan and create enough financial breathing room that an unexpected expense doesn't immediately send you back to the card. So if you have a credit card balance right now, start with the same process. Write down the balance, APR, minimum payment, and due date. Stop adding unnecessary spending to the card. Build a realistic monthly payment into your budget. Automate it where appropriate. If you have multiple debts, list them all and choose a repayment strategy instead of randomly paying whichever one you feel like that month. And every time you make a payment, watch the balance fall. Because $5,000 is overwhelming when you only look at the starting number. But $5,000 becomes $4,500, then $4,000, then $3,000, then $1,000, then zero. And that is the number you're working toward. Not making the minimum payment, not trying to use the card less, not hopefully getting better with money. Zero. Oliver, Ethan, and Ryan all started with exactly the same $5,000 balance. The difference was not that Ryan suddenly made more money. He stopped the balance from growing, created a payment he could actually maintain, and gave every extra dollar a purpose. And once the card is paid off, the smartest move isn't to celebrate by filling it back up. It's to make sure you never need the same rescue plan again.